The next presentation we have for you, as I alluded to, the Health Committee provided those broad recommendations on Monday at their most recent meeting, and we took those recommendations to our administrative team and asked them to develop a plan that was responsive to that, as well as taking into account any number of other informational factors we have beyond the Health Committee's report, to propose a model for your consideration, school board, and for your discussion today. And then following our public forum later in the meeting, I will be seeking your approval related to the proposed return to school plan. And so as folks get in place to prepare that presentation for you today, I do want to give a very special thanks to our division leadership team and their entire teams for the tremendous effort and energy that has gone into putting together a plan that's responsive to the information we've been given and frankly goes above and beyond to consider every aspect of every angle of every part of the school experience, from the student experience to the staff experience to any of the operational and infrastructure aspects. So there are a large number of folks from that team you're going to hear from personally today, and I want to tell them again how grateful I am for their diligent round-the-clock work that's frankly been going on for months since we had our emergency closure in March. And I also want to thank the members of their team who aren't present today. So without further ado, Dr. Hughes, please get us started.
Thank you, Dr. Cashwell. Good afternoon, Chairman Cooper and members of the board. My name is Leslie Hughes, and I'm the Chief Learning Officer for Henrico County Public Schools. This afternoon, I, along with colleagues from various departments, will present the administration's proposal for the return to school plan.
Dr. Hughes, I hate to do this to you. Can you just move a little bit closer?
A little closer.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, tell me if that's better. Earlier, Dr. Tigan provided a recommendation from the Health Committee for the learning approach to the second 9 weeks and beyond. Key highlights of Dr. Tigan's presentation included the Health Committee's recommendation to expand optional in-person learning opportunities for pre-K through 12 students, to continue a fully virtual option for pre-K through 12 students, to provide a phased-in approach to in-person learning by level, prioritizing elementary students, to use 6-foot social distancing for classroom seating, to maintain cohort groupings as much as possible, to create one-way traffic patterns in hallways, and to adjust the secondary master schedule to stagger and extend transition times. In addition to the Health Committee's recommendation, the Henrico County Public Schools Division Leadership Team has examined a variety of other information sets and data points in considering what approach to learning would be proposed for the second 9 weeks. The additional information considered included family and student surveys, a staff questionnaire, staff focus groups regarding feedback from current limited in-person experiences, family focus groups, principal focus groups, and Region 1 assistant superintendent and principal collaborative sessions. These sessions provided principals opportunities to discuss increased in-person learning experiences with their colleagues across the region and to examine practices currently in place in various divisions. Principals gleaned valuable insights on the necessary strategies for preparedness for safety measures and increased learning experiences. When HCPS selected a predominantly virtual learning model for the first 9 weeks, an important component of that model was prioritizing limited in-person opportunities for select groups of students. As a reminder, students in these select groups were prioritized for these experiences during the first 9 weeks based on more significant challenges accessing and having success in virtual learning environments. This included our early learners, pre-K, K, 1 and 2, Level 1 English language learner elementary students, special education students, and grades 11 and 12 CTE students. During this first 9 weeks, our administrators and service providers have collaborated with our families of students in these groups to provide in-person experiences that adhere to our safety guidelines. These in-person opportunities were designed to offer students a chance to meet their teachers, participate in assessments and evaluations, and receive in-person support. Our CTE students, who rely on hands-on instruction and practice as a part of their courses, have the chance to gain this critical in-person experience as they work to master competencies that may be needed to obtain specific industry certifications associated with their course. The successes and lessons learned from these in-person experiences have been critical as we seek to understand how our health and safety mitigation plan plays out in our schools and buses when students are present. In addition, staff providing limited in-person instruction participated in focus groups to provide us with guidance on how best to increase in-person opportunities for students moving forward. This guidance and feedback has helped inform our plan to increase in-person instruction for additional student groups throughout the remainder of the year. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Ingrid Grant, Chief of School Leadership, who will discuss the administration's proposed model for instruction as we move into the second 9 weeks, which was shaped by the Health Committee's recommendation and the other factors mentioned.
Good afternoon. As you heard earlier, the Health Committee, using the CDC K-12 school metrics and associated guidelines for reopening schools, has recommended that HCPS continue to offer students a fully virtual option and expand in-person learning opportunities pre-K through 12 in a gradual manner using all aspects of our health and safety plan. It is important to note that if this timeline is approved, it is subject to change should there be any change in health condition that moves the cumulative level into high risk. The Health Committee will continue to meet and provide administration weekly reports on local and regional health conditions. Administration may delay this timeline or temporarily shift all students back to virtual learning model as needed. While virtual learning is serving many students well, we understand the challenges it poses, and there are many in-person experiences that are missed from a virtual model. Therefore, we are committed, as we have been since the start of this school year, to bring students who want or need the option to learn in schools as it is safe to do so. As you can see in the proposed timeline, in response to the Health Committee's recommendation, we are recommending a staggered return model that prioritizes our early learners. Staggering the groups will provide for systems and structures to adjust for safety precaution as larger groups return. This would mean the first day of in-person learning for pre-K2 students who choose an in-person option would begin November 30th. Students in 3-5 would begin December 7th. Grades 6 through 12 will remain in a predominantly virtual setting into the second semester. At the secondary level, we continue to expand limited in-person learning for select groups of students as we did the first 9 weeks. This means students in grades 6 through 12 in CTE, SPED, ESL who are receiving in-person instruction on campus will continue to have those experiences, and we will work to expand those opportunities throughout the second 9 weeks. The transition of our newest middle and high school students, grades 6th and 9th, requires particular care. And we have prioritized those grades by offering an advanced start on February 1st and 2nd for 6th and 9th grade students to return on February 1st and 2nd to familiarize themselves with new school environment in the day 1 and day 2 schedules. February 3rd would be a virtual day for all secondary students, grades 6 through 12. And on February 4th, all other secondary students who choose the in-person option will begin. Starting secondary students at the beginning of the second semester provides administration an opportunity to rework master schedules to be responsive to health committee's suggestions, which suggest creating staggered schedules for transition in hallways. Furthermore, the natural breaking point between semester allows for more course continuity as student schedules may shift with an addition of the in-person option. While most secondary students in the proposed return to school timeline will not have an in-person return until second semester, limited in-person learning for select groups of middle and high school students continues as indicated on the prior slide. In addition, our plans include the continuity of secondary athletics, clubs, extracurricular activities during the second 9 weeks. Should winter sports be canceled at the middle school level, 8th graders will have the opportunity to try out for their feeder high school JV team. This is consistent with what was done when this past fall was canceled. There has been no deviation from plans shared at the start of the school year, which permit high schools to hold in-person athletic conditioning and extracurricular activities when specific safety guidelines are in place. We understand that our building leaders and teachers not only need advance notice of any shift in instructional models to prepare class rosters and schedules, but they also need time to prepare the school and classroom environment for any potential increase of the number of students receiving in-person instruction. Should the school board approve the proposed timeline for increasing in-person for pre-K 5th, students will begin November 30th. We will provide teachers 2 days in advance of student arrival for preparing their classrooms in accordance with our health and safety guidelines. November 4th and 12th will become asynchronous or independent learning, virtual learning days for elementary pre-K through 5. For our students, allowing teachers 2 work days.
Right there. Can we break for questions or?
On the slide, please see the recommended model for the second marking period for both fully virtual and in-person learning for elementary pre-K through 5th. All efforts were made to ensure the integrity and continuity of learning for students, no matter a virtual or in-person model. Families who select the in-person option will use the model in orange on the slide. They will attend school in person 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Wednesdays will be set aside for an abbreviated virtual learning day for all students, additional planning time for teachers, and focus on wellness. Those continuing to learn virtually will use the schedule shown in green on the slide, which mirrors the virtual schedule they are using now, with a slight change that increases pre-K through 2 virtual day by approximately 15 minutes each day, except Wednesday, which has been slightly reduced. As you see, Wednesday is set aside as a virtual learning day for all students. Based on feedback from teacher focus groups, all teachers and students will use the virtual approach on Wednesdays, which are designated as Wellness Wednesdays. Learners will be provided 2 hours of synchronous instruction virtually, and the remainder of the Wednesday will consist of asynchronous or independent work that focuses on wellness and may also receive additional needed academic support from their teachers. Teachers will use the remainder of the day for remote learning and professional development. With students and staff working remotely, our cleaning staff can do additional deep cleaning in our buildings. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Stacy Alston, who will describe the elementary classroom.
While we always strive to ensure our buildings and our classrooms are welcoming for students and conducive to learning, it's important to note that the learning environment in our schools will be much different. While we are still mindful of meeting the developmental needs of our students, it's important that we follow all aspects of the division's health plan, which creates a more limiting in-person experience than our traditional classroom experience. Students at the elementary level will remain in their assigned classrooms with their homeroom cohort as much as possible to limit exposure to other individuals. Efforts will include mitigating factors for lunch, library, art, music, and PE classes, bathroom usage, recess, hallways, bus ramps, and more. Each student will have a desk guard provided for their individual workspace. Seating arrangements for students' desks will be designed to maintain a distance of 6 feet between students. This process will be measured from student midline to midline, rather than edge to edge on desks. Visual cues will be placed on the floor to help students maintain social distancing. Teachers will receive desk guards to be utilized for their workspace, reading group space, or other strategic spots in the room. Students will have their own set of supplies and materials and will not use shared inventory. Principals will review student intent data and work to create student-teacher assignments that balance the number of students returning in person, the number of students remaining virtually, and finally, their individual building infrastructure to provide the best possible instructional environment for all of our stakeholders. Should the ratio of staffing to student numbers require an alternative scheduling consideration, we have created instructional models to support teachers with in-person and virtual instruction, to assist with mitigating exposure and to support potential contact tracing if necessary. Our LAMP teachers, library, art, music, and PE, that staff would instruct students virtually through the Teams platform as the students would remain in their homeroom classrooms. Having LAMP teachers broadcast on Teams from their own instructional workspace allows us to limit transitions throughout the building and serve students in both the in-person and virtual setting at the same time. Elementary students who choose to return in person would remain grouped with their class or cohort group all day and eat lunch with their group while maintaining social distancing. Meals will be delivered to the classroom setting to limit student travel in the hallways. Students will be given opportunities for outside recess, but with new expectations for spacing and types of physical activities. The number of students participating in recess spaces will be adjusted. For example, one homeroom could be assigned to the blacktop and another to the soccer field. To avoid mixing groups of students, student movement inside the school building will be significantly limited to the same classroom spaces. Another key process change to protect our students and our staff is the removal of all field trips, assemblies, and large group gatherings. In order to mitigate risk, visitors to the building will occur by appointment only and be limited to the main office. The screening process for visitors will continue as detailed in the HCPS health plan. In order to safeguard against asymptomatic individuals, random temperature checks will be done daily for students and staff. At this time, Mike DeSalt, our Teacher, Learning, and Innovation Director, will continue the presentation with information on a sample instructional schedule for grades pre-K through 5.
Elementary students will keep the majority of their previous routines, times, and instructional blocks within the next phase of our learning plan. Our goal was to ensure that the instructional momentum that was gathered over the previous few months was not lost in our transition for either the in-person or virtual learner. Pre-K through 2 students will be adding an additional 30 minutes to their schedule to match that of our 3 through 5 students on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 o'clock a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. Our Wednesdays, all students, pre-K through 5, will connect with their teachers virtually from 8 o'clock a.m. to 10 o'clock a.m. This ensures we reach 3 very important goals. Number 1, we provide our custodial staff time to do additional deep cleaning of the building with fewer numbers of staff and students present. 2, provide our teachers with ample time for continued professional learning and planning to ensure they continue to meet the needs of our students. And finally, number 3, provide our students the continuity they need to connect with their teacher and their classmates each day of the week. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Farrell, Director of High School Education, who will describe the secondary classroom.
As stated previously by Dr. Austin, seating arrangements for student desks will be designed to maintain a distance of 6 feet, of 6 feet between students. This process will be measured from student midline to midline rather than edge to edge on desks. In this slide, there are 2 pictures. The picture on the left shows what a classroom with 6 feet distancing looks like. The picture on the right shows an example of a 3-sided desk guard that each student will have. For safety considerations, secondary school leaders will work to maintain consistency with student schedules and their current teachers by scheduling or assigning virtual and in-person classes based on staff and student needs. Students will continue with their current courses, but may learn from a different instructor and/or during a different class period, while attempts will be made to arrange schedules so that teachers teach in person and virtual learners in separate course sections. There are cases where some teachers may provide in-person and virtual instruction simultaneously. We have a plan to support those teachers who need to utilize that model. In regards to lunch, students will be assigned to lunch pods and may eat in their classrooms or other large areas throughout the building in a distanced fashion. Students will not engage in in-person field trips, assemblies, or large group gatherings. As we began during the summer, schools will continue to welcome visitors to their main offices by appointment only. Lastly, schools will increase cleaning of high-touch areas and do deep cleaning daily. Now let us take a look at middle and high school schedules. Here, we have a middle school schedule. As stated earlier, students will receive 4 days of in-person learning or synchronous learning for students who choose to remain virtual. Students would utilize the adjusted bell schedule implemented during the first 9 weeks, which allows for 60 minutes per class period to include a 30-minute advisory block and 10-minute transitions. Transitions for in-person students will be used to allow students to move to their next classroom and for surface area cleaning, while transitions for virtual students will be used for snack, restroom, and to get supplies. The advisory block would consist of social and emotional learning lessons, intervention, and enrichment opportunities. After school, students would be expected to complete independent work for a minimum of 1 hour and 15 minutes. On Wednesdays, students would work asynchronously as teachers utilize the time for planning, office hours, additional exceptional education support, or professional learning. This slide shows a sample schedule for high schools. Classes will run for 75 minutes with the exception of first period, which runs for 50 minutes and meets daily, and early bird classes, which run for 55 minutes. The high school schedule also includes 20 minutes of extended learning time, which will be used for advisory, academic support, social and emotional learning lessons, extracurricular meetings, and time for case managers to meet with special education students. In addition, students will have time for lunch built into 4th and 5th periods. Students who return for in-person learning and those who remain virtual will have 10-minute breaks between classes. For our virtual students, this time can be used for getting a snack, stretching, and to use the restroom. For students who return for in-person learning, the 10-minute transition time will be used for students to transition from one classroom to the next and for surface cleaning. After school, students will be expected to complete their independent work for a minimum of 55 minutes. And as stated previously, on Wednesdays, students would work asynchronously as teachers utilize the time for planning, office hours, additional exceptional education support, or professional learning. Now, Donis Davenport, Director of Exceptional Education, will share information about special education.
Our exceptional education teachers and service providers have been dedicated to providing quality services and supports for students with disabilities, both virtually and with the addition of limited in-person support throughout the first 9 weeks. Students with disabilities who receive the majority of their instruction through special education services will have the opportunity to return to the school environment in an expedited manner. Students who are in early childhood special education programs and students who are served in our elementary integrated services programs will have the opportunity to return to their classrooms on November 30th. Subsequently, on December 7th, those secondary students who are served through self-contained integrated services programming will have the opportunity to return to their classrooms. Other students with disabilities will follow the return to school process as we have outlined before in our previous slides. However, if a student's IEP team has determined that he or she requires limited in-person support to access virtual instruction, the student will continue to have access to that support until that student has the opportunity to return to the classroom with their peers. Next, Mike Dussault will return to share the plan for our English learners.
Targeted Level 1 English learners in grades 6 through 12 will either go to their home school or nearby hub school depending on student numbers and staffing. This will take place during the extended learning period at the end of the school day to receive additional direct language instruction and academic support. Students will be served by an ESL teacher or ESL instructional assistant who may or may not be their school-based assigned staff. As staffing allows, we will continue to add additional 6 through 12 students over the coming weeks. It is important to note that K through 5 Level 1 English learners will continue engaging in limited in-person instruction as they have done the past few weeks. At this time, I will turn the presentation over to Dr. Noel, who will discuss changes with the Student Code of Conduct to address COVID procedures.
As more students transition back into school buildings, a COVID-19 addendum to the Code of Student Conduct has been developed in response to the HCPS Health and Safety Plan. This addendum addresses the importance of practicing proven safety measures during this pandemic and will require parent signature and acknowledgement of the requirement that students on campus must adhere to these protocols. The HCPS Health Plan requires the wearing of face mask coverings by students and staff while physically attending school and on school buses. Students must adhere to the social distancing guidelines in their classrooms and throughout the school as directed by school staff to ensure proper spacing is occurring in all areas. Failure to comply with this requirement of wearing face masks or coverings and/or adhering to distance guidelines will be addressed by school administrators. Consequences for noncompliance include, but are not limited to, removal from in-person learning. In order to ensure adherence to our HCPS health plan, it is imperative that all individuals on our campuses follow all elements of the plan for everyone's safety. In addition, we've added a statement to this addendum that addresses student conduct regarding bullying and harassment. Any face mask or covering that contains racist, offensive, or obscene words and/or graphics are strictly prohibited and fully subject to the Code of Student Conduct. At this time, I will turn it over to Anne Marie Seeley, Director of Student Quality, who will discuss attendance.
When Henrico County opened the school year in the fully virtual setting, attendance policies and procedures had to be updated. Using the VDOE guidance that provides flexibility for a variety of family circumstances, we updated our attendance expectations to include meaningful interaction and meaningful contact. Attendance expectations and procedures for students who choose the fully virtual option in the second 9 weeks and beyond will remain as they have been since the start of the 2021 school year. A student will be counted as present if he or she fulfills the requirements for meaningful interaction or meaningful contact for either the academic period or the day. Both options provide students with the opportunity to engage in learning experiences throughout the day. As a reminder, students are counted present for the day in one of two ways. Either through meaningful interaction, which is the synchronous setting, and a student is observed by the teacher to be visually present during a synchronous lesson during the day in elementary school or a course in secondary, or through meaningful contact, which is the asynchronous option. In the elementary level, this is 15 minutes daily on a teacher-designated digital literacy platform, and in the secondary level, it is completion of one warm-up activity for the day. One warm-up completed is required for a student to be counted as present. For students who are accessing the aligned standards of learning, an alternate teacher-created, administrator-approved measure may be used. A student must complete the daily assignment for the attendance period by 11:59 p.m. on the day it is assigned. Attendance procedures for the fully in-person students will follow the model used prior to the COVID-19 closure. Students must report to the school each day in order to be counted as present. Students who are late to school will be marked tardy. Students and families may not choose the virtual school option due to illness, vacation, or other absences. When a student is absent from school, the family must notify the school and request the absence to be excused. Absences due to illness must be reported within 24 hours of the absence. Requests for pre-planned absences to be excused should be submitted in writing to the principal prior to the absence. If a class or school is required to quarantine due to COVID-19, virtual attendance procedures will be used throughout the duration of the quarantine. Positive student-teacher relationships are vital to classroom success. While Wednesdays will be a virtual day for asynchronous academic work, they will begin with the opportunity for students and teachers to connect through the district or school's social emotional learning, or SEL, curriculum. Attendance will be taken through the SEL activity. Students can choose to participate synchronously in the lesson, or they can choose to complete a short activity prior to 11:59 p.m. on Wednesday night. Following the SEL block, teachers will be available until 11 a.m. for small group work at the elementary level and a variety of academic support at the secondary level. This support may include tutoring, remediation, assessment retakes, teacher-student conferences, and support with makeup work. And now, Chris Sorensen, Chief Financial Officer, will share information on teacher support and flexibility, as well as targeted compensation for teachers.
HCPS continues to lead the way in providing support and flexibility for our employees. This support was exemplified during the emergency spring closure when HCPS continued to compensate all of our employees, full and part-time, and did not furlough any positions. Moving forward, we want to continue to show our commitment to our employees by expanding our investment in additional instructional, compensation, employee benefit policies, and wellness supports and flexibility. Mrs. Bolden and I will discuss the highlights of those investments in our return to school plan that specifically focuses on our employees. To help us identify the most beneficial supports, HCPS gathered stakeholder perspectives through focus groups as a basis to ensure all aspects of supports for the second 9 weeks of school were considered. 11 focus groups were conducted from September 25th through October 5th with representatives of teachers, division and school administrators, and parents to provide feedback and suggestions on in-person and virtual learning for the second 9 weeks. Invited participants were representatives of all levels, pre-K through 12, magisterial districts, and student populations. The content from the 11 focus groups was gathered and reviewed for themes. As a result of that feedback, teachers will be provided with the following supports and flexibility: more technology to assist in instructional delivery. Additional planning time is allocated for teachers by maintaining the shortened school days on Wellness Wednesdays after the 2-hour virtual component for elementary, or time for a variety of academic support at the secondary level. This also allows for additional deep cleaning of facilities while staff and students work remotely. At least one permanent substitute and 2 classroom monitors will be hired for each school to assist with current limited in-person instruction being offered and to support our teachers as we prepare to expand for in-person learning. Additional permanent substitutes and classroom monitors will be hired as needed. In understanding the changing landscape and additional challenges some teachers may take on for their students, we've also planned for targeted compensation. Examples of teachers that qualify for the targeted compensation include teachers transitioning from virtual to in-person instruction and are required to continue teaching their currently assigned students in a blended classroom. They'll be both having in-person and virtual students. Teachers of classes only offered 1 period within the master schedule, typically specialty center AP classes and some languages. Inclusion teachers transitioning from virtual to in-person instruction and agree to continue teaching their currently assigned students with their content teacher in a blended classroom. And this would primarily be special education teachers and English learner teachers. Elementary teachers that eat lunch in the classroom with students would also be eligible for targeted compensation. All stipends would be paid quarterly. Stipends for blended learning at the elementary level are based on the number of weeks blended learning occurs for the teacher and would be approximately $600 for each 9-week period. Stipends for blended learning at the secondary level are based on the number of weeks blended learning occurs for the teacher and the number of subjects taught to both in-person and virtual students. Stipends would be approximately $150 per course per 9-week period. And stipends at the elementary level associated with eating lunch with students would be approximately $225 for a 9-week period. So now Francine Bolden, Chief of Human Resources, will now address other supports included in the proposal.
As an employer, HCPS endeavors to demonstrate care and commitment to and for all of our staff members. The division is appreciative of the feedback and information staff has provided us to inform decision-making. This feedback and information has been garnered through various mechanisms to include focus groups, the recent staff survey, emails, and one-on-one conversations. Through these interactions, it is clear that flexibility is paramount in assisting staff to navigate the impacts of COVID-19 as related to employment. Accordingly, and continuing our efforts of responsiveness, today the school board approved the recommendation to revise 2 policies, the employee discretionary leave policy and the school assignment variance procedures policy. The revisions to these policies relax eligibility requirements during the period of the pandemic to allow greater policy access, thus providing increased flexibility for staff to address employment issues and family concerns. Additionally, while it is mandated by law that employers engage with staff who require workplace accommodations for their own medical conditions, HCPS has gone further. The division recognizes that amongst our ranks are staff members who have, within their households, family members with medical conditions that may be impacted by COVID-19. The administration will work with such employees to prioritize these concerns as well to provide accommodations. In our efforts of support, the division seeks to advocate for staff mental wellness and self-care. The global pandemic has brought about significant changes in our lives. Many may experience increased feelings of stress, anxiety, and loss. Now, more than ever, mental wellness and self-care are essential to maintain overall well-being and health. As a part of our employee benefits package, employees and their family members are able to access the Employee Assistance Program, or the EAP, which is a helpful resource for addressing personal or work-related challenges and concerns. The Human Resources Department is also able to connect employees to other resources, such as articles, webinars, videos, and counseling services. Supports also take the form of training to equip staff with important information to address COVID-19, both within and outside of the work environment. Staff has received training on topics such as self-screening for COVID-19 symptoms and staying home when sick, recognizing, promoting, and engaging in behaviors that reduce the spread of COVID-19, and understanding the HCPS benefits that are available to assist with the impacts of COVID-19. I will now turn the presentation over to Robin Gilbert, our School Health Services Supervisor, who will share information regarding school clinic procedures.
In the event a student becomes ill or a fever is discovered during a random temperature check, the student will be directed to the health isolation room. Clinic staff will be manning each school's health isolation room during school hours. This room is frequently cleaned with the electrostatic sprayer and is equipped with an air scrubber. Here, our health staff will be provided with full medical-grade PPE to include an N95 mask, a face shield, a gown, and gloves prior to completing an assessment of the student to determine next steps. Parental contact will be made, and based on our VDH HHD guidance, our health staff will communicate the path of next steps and discuss when it may be safe to return to instruction in the school. Contact tracing for our students will occur as it does for our staff if the student is identified as a positive COVID case, has had an exposure to a COVID positive case, or has been or has plans to be tested for COVID-19. Let's review the Virginia Department of Health algorithm for evaluating a child with COVID-19 symptoms or exposure. Here is a partial snapshot of the algorithm, which provides guidance for parents and guardians, school and child care facilities, and healthcare providers that all lead to a return to school recommendation. This is what will guide HCPS. This guidance will apply to all students and staff. Simply put, if a confirmed case of COVID is reported, the Virginia Department of Health and Henrico Health Department will be notified, and a list of close contacts will be provided. All confirmed cases will be required to isolate at home for 10 days with symptom onset or date of their positive test. At the conclusion of the 10 days, and the student has been fever-free for over 24 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication and has experienced improvement in all other symptoms, then the student or staff member may return to school. Student absences due to quarantining or isolating will be tracked in PowerSchool. All close contacts of confirmed cases will be informed by the school of their exposure and kept out of school for 14 days or a time frame set by the Virginia Health Department or Henrico Health Department from the date of their exposure. If the contact never develops symptoms or never tests positive, he or she may return to school or work after this quarantine time. If he or she develops symptoms or tests positive, the contact is now a case and the case protocol now applies. This means the school reports this to the Virginia Department of Health and Henrico Health Department, and this contact isolates for 10 days from symptom onset or the positive test. A close contact is someone who spends a cumulative total time of 15 minutes or more within 6 feet of another person. The use of a face cover is not a factor in the assessment of a close contact. School health services will work directly with the Henrico Health Department in determining if a classroom or school needs to transition to fully virtual based on specific health metrics within the classroom or school itself. I will now turn the presentation over to Mr. Lenny Pritchard, who will share information from operations.
Good afternoon. Today I will provide an update from facilities, our cleaning efforts, and our HVAC systems. Our central facilities team continue to ensure our facilities are prepared for students and staff each day. In order to do that, we continue to be responsive to daily work orders that are placed to maintain the operation of all systems. Our safety inspectors, David Murdoch and Gwen Miller, continue to work collaboratively with principals and COVID liaisons to review language, signage, and distant dots throughout their building. They are also doing spot checks in buildings to ensure all signage, sneeze guards, and other measures are in place and being properly used. To help with our daily cleaning and sanitizing procedures, funding has been provided to hire additional custodial staff. Custodian crews will increase their daily cleaning of high-touch areas such as doorknobs, light switches, and restrooms. To enhance our updated protocols, facilities will secure large electrostatic sprayers for each school to enhance cleaning and sanitizing classrooms and high-touch areas nightly before student and staff return the next day. And transportation has secured handheld electrostatic sprayers that will be used to clean and sanitize seats and high-touch areas in between each bus route, as well as at the end of the day, so that our buses are ready to receive students the next day. Our indoor HVAC systems will be reviewed on a daily basis. I would like to review the following HVAC components today. Air flushing is continuous air operation that brings fresh air into the building more often. Per the CDC and ASHRA recommendations, each building is flushed for 2 hours before school and 2 hours after school. ASHRA stands for the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers. As far as ventilation, we have increased the amount of fresh air being brought into our buildings as much as possibly allowed, thus reduced the circulation of air within buildings. It is important to have the air intakes and exhaust on the exterior of the building, appropriately spaced from each other so that the intakes do not pull in air directly from the exhaust. Distancing is a code requirement, so our staff is verifying that no past changes have been made which might affect the separation of these two HVAC components. In regards to our HVAC filter changes and upgrades, our air filters will be changed every 6 weeks. Each HVAC system can handle specific air filters. We We have ensured each system is outfitted with the highest grade filter recommended for the specific system to run effectively and efficiently. The exhaust fans are used to force air out of the building. HCPS maintenance staff are diligently checking, ensuring building exhaust systems are functioning and properly and making any necessary repairs quickly. Our building temperature set point adjustments are meant to maintain comfortable temperatures and humidity levels given the set airflow. These automated systems are not designed to operate with windows being open throughout the building. And our BAS, known as our Building Automation System, is the brain center for most of our HVAC systems throughout the school district, and the system is reviewed daily and reports generated. The reports show BAS alarm notifications in abbreviated form, which let us know when any aspect of the equipment may not be functioning properly. Sometimes these alarms show a piece of equipment that simply needs to be reset, or it can show a unit which has shut down. Facility uses these reports to prioritize daily work orders and calls and repairs, and ultimately all notifications are reviewed and addressed. And I want to reiterate that should any building or location experience a long-term power outage, HVAC system failure, or experience excessive heat or cold weather that could stop a building's HVAC system from working properly, the division may temporarily close the location with an affected HVAC system until such time the system is functioning properly. And at this time, I'd like to invite up Jim Ellis, who will give us an overview of our transportation procedures.
Bus drivers and assistants will receive in-person training focused on required cleaning protocols after each run. As mentioned, we have secured electrostatic sprayers, which will allow for swift and thorough cleaning and sanitizing in between bus runs. This will help speed up our pickup and drop-off times for our students, as limited capacity on our buses may mean more student runs than usual. Cloth face coverings will be required of all staff, and face shields will be also provided to drivers and assistants should they be needed. Before leaving home and riding a bus or attending school, students will be required to complete a daily health screening at home and must wear cloth face covering when riding on the bus as well as at school. 3-foot social distancing will be maintained between riders, which will allow one student per seat on the bus. The only exceptions are siblings or students living in the same house, as they will be allowed to sit together in one seat without the need for social distancing. Students will load the bus from the back to the front and unload from the front to the back to minimize student path crossing. We will establish a seating chart based on confirmed ridership for each bus route to help make contact tracing easier if needed. It's important to know multiple runs may be required that differ from routine routes and timeframes as additional riders are added. And now, let's get back to Chris Sorensen for an update on food service.
The United States Department of Agriculture recently expanded waivers that allow us to serve free meals to anyone 18 or under through the current school year. During the second 9 weeks, to maximize the efficiency of our staff, we will refine our delivery models to ensure we are meeting nutritional needs of all of our students, whether in person or virtual. This will include the following. For our in-person students, elementary students may select their meal preference from available options for the following day. Meals will then be delivered to classrooms, and elementary students will eat in their classrooms where individual desk shields are in place, or they may eat outdoor or other large spaces. Secondary students will go to the cafeteria daily and select from available meal options while in the cafeteria. Meals will be served in closed containers. Secondary students will eat lunch in pods in large areas in the building or in their classroom. Cafeteria areas will implement physical distancing, and floors will be marked in 6-foot intervals. Meals for Wednesday, which is a virtual learning day for all students, will be sent home on Tuesday for all in-person students. For For our virtual students, we're reviewing the feasibility of providing curbside service at all schools, taking into consideration the distance between schools and the number of meals served at each location. So reviewing the efficiency of maintaining service at over 60 bus stops by again reviewing the distance between the current bus stop, meal distribution sites, and curbside locations. For all of our students, cafeteria workers preparing food containers or bags utilize appropriate personal protective equipment. School nutrition staff will continue to monitor all students' allergies and special nutritional needs. Now, Adrienne Cole-Johnson, Director of Family and Community Engagement, will discuss our child care partners.
In preparation for more in-person learning, the 3 child care providers currently operating within our schools will be impacted. All providers understood prior to beginning operations this school year that should the division increase in-person learning, there could be a need for the programs to transition back to offering their traditional after-school programs. Should the school board accept the recommendation for increased in-person instruction, a meeting will be held to discuss next steps and timelines related to programs, communicating specific changes to their programming with families prior to families needing to submit their intent forms. Because the recommended timeline involves phasing in pre-K through 2nd grade and then 3rd through 5th grade, we would continue to provide this child care service until all elementary groups pre-K through 5 were transitioned to the in-person option. As for what's next, should the board accept this proposed plan for increasing in-person instruction into the second 9 weeks, we will hold 2 virtual town hall events next week. Both events will be designed to share more information about the adopted plan and to answer questions. The first will be exclusively for HCPS employees on October 27th at 4 p.m. There will be a second town hall for families and the general public that same evening, starting at 6:30 p.m. We'll communicate the details of both events at the conclusion of this board meeting. Once we've had an opportunity to share more information and details with families and employees, we'll work to gather intent from our students' families and ask that employees share their intent related to next steps with their supervisors. As always, frequently asked questions and other details about the second 9 weeks will appear on our website, which is www.henricoschools.us. So on behalf of the team, I would like to take a moment to thank the board for its support and to Dr. Cashwell for her leadership during this journey, as well as the guidance from the HCPS Health Committee. It is apparent throughout this presentation that all staff have worked tirelessly and collaboratively to keep everyone safe and healthy as the 2021 school year progresses.
Thank you so much to all of the presenters who gave quite a bit of information. And so as I described at the beginning of this presentation, the proposal presented to you has been thoroughly worked through a number of efforts across the school division team.